I'm Frank Garza, and welcome to Here and Abroad, a podcast that follows the U.S. men's national team and their player pool across Europe, MLS, or wherever else they play their club football. On today's show, we're back with 5 new USMNT questions that have been on my mind this week. We'll look at the best and worst moves of the winter transfer window, U.S. internationals in the Champions League, the central midfield depth chart, and how much the big win over Uruguay back in November will influence Mauricio Pochettino's roster selection for the March friendlies. To help me do that, I've invited Chuck Booth to join the show. Chuck is a soccer writer at CBS Sports. So, Chuck, I have 5 questions for you today, and let's start with the winter transfer window. Which U.S. international do you think had the best winter transfer window? And this could be someone who moved or who stayed put.
Getting started there, it's really hard to look past Alex Freeman's move, because considering that Villarreal already have a void to fill at right back with Juan Foyth being injured, it's going to be a chance where he actually has time to settle in with players who have already been in MLS and made the transition to bigger leagues, while also having time to earn a role with the club too. And that's really like all you can ask for in a transfer.
Yeah. Yeah, he's kind of who I picked out too. You know, it's a little bit, I think if you and I might have even talked about this, but a couple months ago, I would have thought, it's too risky for these guys in MLS, to move over. But I don't know. I don't think that anymore. I don't think that with him. I just don't doubt this guy at all. You know what I mean? He's betting on himself. He's going over there, and I like it for him.
Yeah, you saw like links of things like Diego Luna to Espanyol during this window. And I don't think that right now would be as good of a situation as like what Freeman is going into. And even if Freeman went to like most other clubs in the Liga, I might have a different view of the transfer than specifically going to Villarreal. It's just like when you match club player situation that they're going into, this is one that just kind of checks all of those boxes, where a lot of times we've just seen American players move for the sake of moving, and some of those just don't seem right.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he just completed the move. First match there, he made the bench. So he was on the bench, didn't see any minutes, but it tells you something that even in the brief time he was there, they thought highly enough of him to at least dress him for the match. Well, Villarreal has their next game coming up here in the next couple of days. We're recording this before then, but we'll see if he can make his debut then. But I'm excited. I'm excited to see what he can do, to see how he can ramp up and what he can do there. I mean, it seems like they need him, and it seems like he's going to get all the opportunity, in the world. It's good. This is just a guy in general I'm just really excited about. Yeah. I mean, his trajectory is exciting.
Well, yeah, it's insane that basically, was it like March or so of last year, he was making his first start for Orlando City. And now he's in the Liga. Like, we were already like witnessing an insane trajectory of Alex Freeman, and it's only gone further.
Yeah. If you and I were talking a year ago doing like an MLS preview show, and we were talking about, hey, who's the maybe young talents in MLS we need to keep an eye on for the future USMNT, we wouldn't have talked about Alex Freeman.
No, I mean, I don't even think...
He was nowhere on there.
Yeah,
I don't even know his name.
Yeah, I don't even think he would have made a top 10 list at that point.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's how, in 1 year, how far this guy has come from nobody really even knowing about him or even seeing his potential to now he's playing in La Liga, which it's incredible. Okay, question number 2. Let's do the opposite. Which U.S. international do you think had the worst transfer window? And you're already smiling.
Well, I'm smiling because I feel like there's the whole disastrous Ricardo Pepi answer. Although I think that it's good that Ricardo Pepi is staying at PSV. I I mean, I've seen like conflicting opinions, even just among my coworkers, where like Fulham may have been a good place for him, but I'm just not sure in moving to Fulham right now when he already has an injury because he's recovering from his broken arm and won't actually like even be able to really feature until March. Like we don't know if he's going to make the USMNT squad for the March international break. Um, while he has been like playing more off the bench at PSV, like his numbers when you look at him starting versus actually on the bench, like he still has quite a bit to prove as a starter at the club. It's not like a scenario where it feels like he's accomplished everything that he can accomplish in the Netherlands before moving to another club where he would then have to prove himself again. And just doing all of that ahead of trying to make the World Cup squad, it would feel like 2022 all over again.
Yeah.
Um, I think potentially the U.S. international that had the worst transfer window, who was already falling off the radar, is Johnny Cardoso.
Oh wow, tell me. This is a surprise for me. Tell me.
Well, because basically there is a pretty decent chance that he falls further down the Atletico Madrid pecking order with Obed Vargas coming in. Um, like when you're talking about guys moving from MLS who seem to have everything that they need to succeed in where they're going, Obed Vargas is also one of those guys. And he's going to be fighting as hard as he can as well, considering like if he even becomes a rotational player for Atletico, like he's going to be in line to potentially like start for the Mexican national team at the World Cup.
Okay. So you think the winter transfer window was bad for Cardoso because of Obed Vargas coming in and Cardoso potentially losing some minutes
When he
to
was, yeah,
him?
when especially when he was like already on limited minutes at the club, and you were wondering like, okay, like Conor Gallagher went to Tottenham, the midfield is like a little lighter now, and that's not the case anymore.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think he's been playing more. I mean, I think the last couple months I've seen him get some starts. I mean, he's out. He missed. They played the other day and he was out injured with like a muscle injury. I heard he's going to be out a couple weeks, but he does seem to be ramping up, or at least I thought
Yeah,
he would, and making progress there.
no, he definitely has played more over recent weeks. I'm just not sure if that's going to be the case over the next
Yeah.
2 months.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. Yeah, to see. I didn't think about those two kind of competing with each other. It'll be interesting to see how much playing time they give to Obed Vargas. How old is that guy?
20.
20. Okay, so he's young, but he's not like teenager. That'll
Yeah, and
be
he
interesting to
and
see.
and he already made his debut for the club when they were up by a lot in Copa del Rey against Real Betis. So
Oh, just the other day.
yeah,
Okay. Okay. Cool. Yeah, you mentioned Ricardo Pepi. I actually thought about putting Ricardo Pepi on my best winter transfer because I was personally happy he didn't move. It sounds like you kind of like feel the same thing. A lot of people didn't. They thought it was an absolute disaster and like kind of terribly disappointing. But I'm kind of like you. We still haven't seen him be the man, the week in, week out number 9 starter for PSV, who's going out there every single week. He finally seemed like he had passed Luke De Jong last year, and then he got injured, and he just hasn't been able to stay on the field consistently enough this season. Then he got injured again, and so I don't mind at all seeing him come back in March and then get on a run of like 2-3 months to end the season where he can be the man. PSV is going to be scoring goals and then go into the World Cup with a good run of form, and then he's going to have the option to move in the summer, and he's going to have maybe more options than Fulham, So I wasn't disappointed by that move falling through at all. It would have been interesting to see him at Fulham, and see what he could do. But I've always liked him staying at PSV, for this season.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with
Um,
that.
yeah, I for the worst winter transfer, I put Josh Sargent there because he's just still floundering at Norwich, trying to get his move to
Yeah,
MLS.
I just assume that that's eventually going to get done. It's
Yeah,
it's in the best interest of all parties for him to just go. Um,
yeah,
and like even if Norwich is haggling over a fee, like Toronto can pay that. So eventually he'll end up in Toronto. Now, is that actually a good move for Josh Sargent? I'm not sure, but it seems like at least at this point he wants to be closer to America with his family. So at least personally, it should be a good move for Josh Sargent.
yeah. I mean, you saw him turn down the move to Germany over the summer. Now he wants to get back to MLS, and so you can see it like for family that he just really wants to make this move, and he's like obviously pushing hard with the club to do it. I agree with you. I think at the end of the day, it'll all work out, but I just don't think. I don't know. I don't see much of a path for him back into the World Cup roster anyway, except for a lot of injuries, happening. But it would be nice to see him get settled at Toronto or wherever he's going to be, and
Yeah,
and just kind of move on from this kind of PR disaster that he's kind of in the middle of right now.
yeah. Considering the run of form, it seems like Patrick Agyemang has definitely passed Josh Sargent and will have a pretty good shot of making the World Cup squad. With the real question, I feel like is going to be one, is Haji Wright counted as like an actual nine or a winger? Um, and are you bringing like all four of them of Haji Wright, Ricardo Pepi, Florian Balogun, and Patrick Agyemang?
Right. Yep. Yep. Okay. Well, the other big thing happening around, Europe, we had the winter transfer window closing, but the other thing that happened is we finally wrapped up the initial phase of the Champions League. We now have the Champions League knockout round defined, and I counted 5 Americans that are in the knockout rounds of the Champions League. Malik Tillman, Johnny Cardoso, Weston McKennie, Fuller and Balogun, and Yunus Musa. Of those 5 players, who do you think will go the furthest in the Champions League knockout rounds?
So it's really funny because I truly forget of Yunus Musa's existence.
I know.
Just because of how much a rotational player he's been for Atalanta. But it's it's funny because it's it's between two players and for the same reason, because of who they can actually draw in the round of 16. Because unfortunately there is a good chance that like only um like one American even makes it to the round of 16, and that's Johnny Cardoso. Because like Athletic should defeat Club Bruges and make their way through. I think Juventus should also beat Galatasaray, but like that's just more of an up in the air fixture. Whereas in the knockouts, like for Monaco, it's like kind of good luck. Leverkusen will make it through, but then they're getting either Bayern or Arsenal, so that's just done for them. And it's going to come down to Weston McKennie versus Johnny Cardoso and who gets Tottenham.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. You have Leverkusen against Olympiacos. You have Atletico Madrid against Club Bruges. You have Juve against Galatasaray, Monaco versus PSG, and Atalanta versus Dortmund. I think all of the Americans, their teams have a good shot of winning, except for maybe Monaco versus PSG. And I don't count them completely out because that's like kind of a French, rivalry. The two teams know each other well, but yeah, Juve or Atletico Madrid, if they win, one of them would play Tottenham in the round of 16. The other one would play Liverpool. And so, yeah, you got to think the one who plays Tottenham is the one who is gonna go the furthest. And so, yeah, either Juve or Atletico Madrid really seem like the only ones that could make it to the quarterfinals, right? And then they could either play Barcelona or Chelsea in the quarterfinals. Juve could also play PSG. And so, I don't know, maybe against Barcelona the way they've been playing, or Chelsea. These are two teams that are those are
Yeah.
two teams that have like some real up and down seasons, right? Maybe they have a chance against one of them. So yeah, I'll go with Atletico Madrid between the two, but it's really going to be a toss up between which one of those gets Tottenham,
Yeah,
with
because
a draw.
I'm not sure either gets past Liverpool, because even
Mm-hmm.
even though just we've seen Liverpool struggle in league play, that just has not translated to Champions League. Whereas like also, I mean, even when it comes to Champions League play, um, Juventus have just been strange. Like they shouldn't even be in the knockouts. And I would say like Atletico Madrid are probably the stronger team, but just neither of them probably gets past Liverpool.
Yeah. All right. Well, last week on the show, we did our latest World Cup roster projections, 26-man roster projections for June. And that got me thinking about a lot of different positions and topics that came up in that discussion. And the first one that I want to ask you about that kind of came into my mind was this deep lying midfielder role. I started thinking about the U.S. starting 11, in that first match of the World Cup. And we all assume Tyler Adams is going to be one of those deep lying midfielders and that we're going to start with, two tens up front, but there's going to be a more deeper lying midfielder next to Tyler Adams. And I'm wondering who's winning the race, the competition, who's in the lead to get that starting spot next to him. What do you think?
Well, it's just rolled back to what it was before, because Weston McKennie is back to being Weston McKennie. Um, and it would kind of be a disappointment if we got to the World Cup and Weston McKennie isn't starting, because he is like the most proven European midfielder on this roster. And it's not particularly close considering what he's done for Juventus. But his form has just always been so up and down that just when we last had this conversation, he was not in a great place. And then he's gone and scored like 4 goals in his last 10 games for Juventus and been back to being a critical player for them. And if he's playing like this, like there's no way that he won't be the starter next to Tyler Adams. Of course, assuming that Tyler Adams is also healthy enough to start, which hopefully he is.
Yeah. See, I like McKennie more next to Pulisic as one of those dual number 10s.
But
I know a lot of
does
people like him deeper. Go ahead.
I'm just wondering, like with that, has Malik Tillman just taken that and run with it?
Yeah. I mean, he's the other guy. Malik Tillman's the other guy I think of, but I just think of like, and I would have, a month ago, I would have said, yes, Tillman next to Pulisic, find a place for McKennie, probably just put him, next to Adams. But with the way McKennie's been playing with Juve, with the way where Pochettino's played him, in the, when he did come into camp, he talks about how McKennie needs freedom, and I don't know. I personally think he's a number, the dual number 10 next to Pulisic right now. It's very tight between him and Tillman. I want to see them both on the field, and I'm actually starting to think maybe Tillman could be the deeper lying midfielder, because he's played that role before. He can do it. I think he gives you a lot going both ways. He gets a lot of turnovers. He gets involved in a lot, of I don't know, physical battles in the field. He's not like a big physical presence, but he just always seems to be around the ball, getting the ball from people, kicking it out from under him and whatnot. And so I also think Pochettino always talks about the flexibility, and maybe with Tillman and McKennie both on the field, you could even rotate them a little bit. Like some situations, Tillman gets more forward, some situations, McKennie gets more forward. I don't know. I like them both on the field,
Yeah.
and I don't know which maybe is the best spot for both of them. But it's hard to take one of them
Well,
off.
well, I guess the the question, if you're putting them both on the field, is who's at wingback? Because then you run into the, where do you put Tim Weah?
Yeah,
And I'm I'm very close to putting Tim Weah at wingback over Serginho Dest.
yeah,
I'm not fully there yet, but like I feel like March is going to tell us a lot about that, considering both are healthy and playing that role for their clubs. Um, but midfield, at least in a good way, is getting tough because then you even have like Tanner Tasman really pushing for minutes. Um, and like he's probably going to start the March games just because you're not going to have Tyler Adams for those. But he's also one of those guys playing for that role next to him. And where you then do, yeah, run into the situation of where do you put McKennie and Tillman?
yeah. Yeah, I mean, so the other guys, Tanner Tessman, Aiden Morris, Christian Roldan, who Pochettino seems to really like. There's Johnny Cardoso, who I personally think is kind of outside looking in, but I mean, he's playing that position for Atletico Madrid. Um, man,
Yeah, there's a
it's
lot.
a tough call.
Yeah, there's a
It's
lot going on, but these are good questions to have versus not
yeah.
having enough players to actually fit the roles.
Yeah. I think this is, there's some positions where there's going to be a starting 11 and, like Pulisic, for example, I think is going to start every match. I think Chris Richards is going to start every match as a center back. But some of these positions, like the deep lying midfielder next to Adams, like the wing back, I think could rotate every single game. I think Way and Dest could rotate. Trade off. Some games maybe are better for Weah, some are for Dest. Pochettino gives them some rest, and you don't lose anything by taking one of them.
Yeah,
In for the other.
and it's great because against the Netherlands, part of the issue was every single starter had to play every single minute during the group stage, and then they just ran out of steam when you got to the round of 16. So, like being able to rotate in these is critical, and the fact that in a lot of positions, like I wouldn't even be surprised, depending on where they are in the group stage, if like Christian Pulisic doesn't start the last group stage match, and like that would be great.
Yeah, no, 100%. If they can win those first two games, seal their spot in the knockout rounds. I mean, so yeah, this is a good problem to have, and I think I ask these questions and I'm curious about it, but the reality is it's probably not that important because there's not going to be this dedicated one person at one position. There's going to be this rotation because we have good quality players, at both. And so I think Tanner Tessman, I think Christian Roldan could both start matches, in the midfield in the group stage. Tillman and McKennie obviously can both start matches. Maybe maybe one of them's on the field one game, one of them's not, and so there's going to be a lot of rotation in some of these positions where we have a lot of depth, and it's going to be a little bit matchup specific, as well.
Yeah, and no complaints here about that.
Yeah, but don't sleep on Roldan, man. I think this guy.
Oh, he's. I think. I think. I mean, I think he's. I think he's in the squad.
Yeah.
And I mean, we'll talk a little bit more about that soon, but
Yeah.
I think he's there. And he certainly is going to be like in line to get playing time. Like he's not there just to be a good locker room presence.
Exactly. And he's played well. I mean, he's got some assists. He's been goal dangerous. I mean, he's just missed on a couple of shots. And so yeah, he's definitely in the mix. Okay, last question, and this is another one that I just started thinking of when I was trying to put my projected roster together. I started thinking about all of these bubble players, on the roster, and I started thinking about how many of those bubble players actually started the match against Uruguay that we won 5-1 back in November. I mean, this is, I think most people would agree, the best performance we've seen under Pochettino. I would argue it's the best performance this U.S. team has had since the last World Cup. I mean, they went out and just smashed a quality opponent, and they did it with, you could argue, half the guys on the field were bubble players. I know Poch isn't going to like that that word. He certainly doesn't want me to call them regulars and non-regulars.
Yeah, I was going to say that's not that word's not allowed here anymore.
Yeah. But so I started thinking, like, if you look at the players who started that match and got the biggest win this team has had in years, how could you leave them, for them to go out and have that performance? Then how could you leave them off of the next roster? And that's my question for you is do you think Pochettino will leave anyone off of that March roster who started against Uruguay? And before you answer, let me just read who that starting lineup was. You had Matt Freese in goal. Then you had Austin Trusty, Mark McKenzie, Alex Freeman on the back line. John Tolkien and Dest were the wingbacks. Berhalter, Morris, the central midfielders, Luna, Tillman, and then Haji Wright up top. So, I mean, a lot of those players I thought, oh, they're not going to make it. But, I mean, can he leave any of them off?
Well, I mean, absolutely. Like, when you start looking at that lineup, like John Tolkien's your third string left back. And it's already enough of a roster hamstring that, like, he's probably bringing 4.5 outside backs to the World Cup, considering just depending on where you actually want to place Tim Weah. Because Anthony Robinson and Max Arson are going. Alex Freeman, Serginho Dest, and Weah are also going. And so I don't know where you put John Tolkien in all that. Like, Joe Scally at least has the I can also play center back thing going for him. And I don't even know if, like, that's going to be enough for him to make the squad. And then Aiden Morris is also in a very tough spot right now because central midfield in those roles, if Tyler Adams can play, is pretty loaded. And I don't know if he can actually break through all of those players to also end up in central midfield when you have players like Tillman, Brendan Aronson, Gio Reyna, who can drop deeper if need be.
Yeah. And I should have mentioned this when I read off the list. When I said Tillman, that was Timothy Tillman, who started, a lot of people would certainly not put him in their, roster, but he's another guy. He played awesome against Uruguay. You know what I mean? And I think ultimately, and I'm not talking about the final roster, I'm talking about this March roster. It wouldn't surprise me if Poch brings in some of these players because to kind of reward them for their performance. But yeah, he's certainly not going to bring in, I don't think, everybody. I mean, Tolkien, Timothy Tillman are probably the two that have the most difficult path, into the squad.
Yeah.
But even Austin Trusty, he's been kind of a bubble player that, could get left off. I don't know. It's hard for me to think because I know these aren't the names that we think of, but it's like this team went out and thrashed Uruguay, and gave you the best performance this team has had.
Yeah, but that's just a great statement of the system working.
True.
Because Pochettino has been trying to build a system that is not dependent on having all of his best players available. And this was one of the first times that we've seen, maybe it doesn't actually matter who's out there because they were playing exactly how he wanted them to play. And that's going to be the thing you're going to want to watch during March when it's like, okay, now we have players who are playing in Europe back in the squad. Are they still playing this way?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's true. He has built this whole like system and culture of kind of like plug and play. Like he's consistently in the last couple windows, no matter who he's put out there, the team has played the same way. They don't look like they've missed a beat, and they've played at a high level. And so it does like speak to that. And I think that is the greatest thing, Poch has done so far. But when that when that roster gets announced in March, I will be looking back to this list to see which of these guys didn't make it in. I find that interesting.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be fascinating just seeing like yeah what he does when it comes to continuity, rotating a squad because like even in his most recent presser, he did say like it's gonna be pretty hard for anyone new to break into his like squad, but also when you've called in 70 players over your time as manager, do you need anyone new to break in?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, he's seen. I don't know anybody out there that he hasn't seen. Even Noah Kai Banks, he's brought into a camp and seen him, so you wouldn't necessarily be bringing in a new player if you brought
Exactly.
him in.
Yeah. Like
So
I can't think of like like literally unless someone else goes and pulls an Alex Freeman, like how you would get deeper than the group has already gotten.
yeah, that's true. Well, it's going to be interesting. I think March 17th is the date I've heard for when that roster is going to come out. So we're a little over a month away from seeing that. Lots can happen between now and then, but I can't wait to get a look at that March roster.
Oh yeah.
All right, Chuck. Well, thanks for coming on today. I will make sure and put links in the show notes to your Blue Sky account if that's still where you're sending people.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're at Chuck Yeah with an extra A. And also to your work at CBS Sports. Those will both be in the show notes. Thank you so much for coming back on the show today.
Thanks for having me.
And thanks to everyone for listening to Here and Abroad. If you enjoyed the episode, please do me a huge favor and hit that subscribe button. If you're watching on YouTube, or that follow button if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or somewhere else. Thank you so much. I'm Frank Garza. You can follow me on X at FrankGarza007, and I'll be back next week with a new episode.